Welcome to Tech Travels, hosted by the seasoned tech enthusiast and industry expert, Steve Woodard. With over 25 years of experience and a track record of collaborating with the brightest minds in technology, Steve is your seasoned guide through the ever-evolving world of innovation. Join us as we embark on an insightful journey exploring the past, present, and future of tech under Steve's expert guidance.
Welcome back, fellow travelers, to another amazing episode of Tech Travels. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting Sani Abdul-Jabbar, a visionary CEO at VezTek, a company that's at the forefront of emerging tech. Sani leads a talented team that's pushing the boundaries around blockchain and artificial intelligence. Also, as an author and a thought leader, a voice and authority in Web3, Sani is here to share his insights as to what's shaping our digital landscape today. So buckle up as we embark on this journey through technology with Sani Abdul-Jabbar. Sani, welcome to Tech Travels. It's an honor to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here.
Very glad to have you. I really want to kind of lead with this story here. It just broke yesterday. World's first major act to regulate AI passed by European lawmakers. It says the European Union is now a global standard setter in artificial intelligence. So kind of help us walk through a little bit of this late breaking news and kind of what this means for us here in the United States.
Yeah, so that certainly is the hot topic today. This conversation about regulation in EU has been going on since December at least. Since before that, but December was early December. They presented the first draft of this bill in their parliament, and it was eventually approved yesterday. The gist of this bill is that it's so they divided or categorized rather AI technologies by risk level of risk. So the highest extreme level would be unacceptable level of risk. The lowest would be acceptable level of risk, and then there are three other levels in between, total 5, I think. And so that's what they have done. Now, historically, I have always supported the idea of regulation, mindful regulation. That's the point. Mindful is the key. In the US, we have this cowboy mindset in the tech world, right? Don't stop me, don't regulate me, because if you regulate me, that hinders the development of technology. That's what I'm trying to do. But the problem is that, yes, I can develop technology, but if there are no rules of engagement and I come to you, Steve, try to sell the technology, you're going to say, well, what are the rules of engagement? How are we going to play? Mm-hmm. If there's no gameplay, if there are no rules of the game, we can't play, right? I can't sell that technology to large corporations. I can't sell that technology to government agencies. They're not going to touch it. So therefore, we need regulation. The counter argument of that is if the regulation is put in place just for the sake of regulation, then we run into a situation where regulation becomes counterproductive, right? Lawmakers aren't necessarily experts in technology. It's the influence groups, it's the think tanks, it's the lobbying groups and the industry groups who have a role to play in that. But there's always priority of interests and all prioritization of interest and competitive interest that we have to deal with. So having said all that, I haven't read the full bill in the EU that was passed in the EU Parliament yesterday, so I can't comment on it with specifics. But if it's put together mindfully, if there are experts involved in it, if they are not putting regulation in place just out of fear, not necessarily to put reasonable guardrails around it, then it can be counterproductive. It doesn't seem so far. What I've read about it doesn't look like. It looks quite reasonable, but like I said, I haven't read the whole thing yet. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I think the idea of regulation just means that it provides a certainty that we really need. The tech community really does thrive on innovation, but without a clear framework, as you mentioned, we really can't realize the potential of these technologies. But your point about the mindful regulation really resonates strongly with me because, I think it's really about striking a critical balance. I think we need to ensure that their experts are at the table with these regulations when they're drafted, so they don't really reflect, fear or misunderstanding around artificial intelligence. But also, given that the EU has recently taken steps, I think it really sets the stage that it's becoming more and more of a guide. Because here in the US, we have this, like I said, this Wild West type of mentality of tech. towards a more structured frontier. Now, with the post-pandemic surge in AI awareness and application, I think it's really crucial that we navigate the hype cycle thoughtfully. So could this bill be a blueprint for really just marrying innovation with responsibility? Or is it something that all of us in the industry need to watch closely and learn as we move forward?
Every technology, every innovative technology goes through a hype cycle. Now, hype, in my opinion, is not necessarily a bad thing, because what hype does, it attracts resources, attracts people, attracts funding, and we develop things. So that's a good thing. The negative of hype is that everyone and their grandmother starts claiming that they are experts in that field. I attended an event last week, no, this week actually, on Monday, where we reviewed several projects, 900 projects total, with a group, along with other group of experts in the industry for investment. So we were reviewing the projects for investment. At least 70% of them were something.ai. And once you start asking questions, you realize that there is no AI. There's like a lot of them was, oh, I'm building a custom GPT plugin. Well, that's not your intellectual property. So don't call it your project. You're asking for hundreds of millions of dollars for something that you don't own. OpenAI can shut you down tomorrow. Then there are a lot of people who are just doing smart automation of things, and they're calling it AI. Overall, I think there are less than 10% companies who are actually building something interesting that can be legitimately called AI. So that's that. That's the current state of the industry, in my opinion, at least what I am seeing in the spaces where I operate. Are we in the hype cycle? Most certainly, yes. My gut feeling is that we need at least till the end of this year to reasonably come out of this hype cycle, because what's going to happen by the end of this year is that you will know companies that are .ai companies which are actually .ai or not. So that's what's going to happen by the end of this year. And my guesstimate is that by the end of the next year, companies who are claiming to be .ai but not .ai and who have raised money, they will run out of money. Mm. So industry consolidation will happen towards the end of the next year, and that's when we'll start seeing real players in the industry. The winners will become more visible. This is not to say that really interesting technologies aren't evolving and coming up in the market every day. Recently, I attended a meeting at a couple of months ago now at Microsoft, where it was the kind of meeting where you have to sign NDA before going to the meeting. They presented some products for the entertainment industry, film industry, and it's mind-boggling what you can do. The kind of stuff that these products can do. I can't talk too much about it because of the non-disclosure commitments, but I can tell you that this is mind-boggling. If anyone thinks that jobs aren't going to get impacted, industries aren't going to get impacted, they're dreaming. Right.
Yeah, and I think the distinction you draw really is powerful, because the distinction between superficial AI applications and genuine innovation is really a wake-up call. And I mean, it's sobering to hear your estimate that under 10% of projects are truly artificial intelligence. I also think that your prediction on industry consolidation really aligns with the critical need to discern real expertise from the hype. So with that in mind, when considering expertise, what is your top criteria for identifying true AI specialists in this crowded field? And just give me a little bit of idea kind of what goes into that thought process.
So first of all, this technology is not such a new technology. Yes, ChatGPT made it popular in the end of 2022, but the first large-scale AI-powered project that we did was in 2018 or 2015, somewhere there, right? So the technology has been around. So there's a technical side of it, and that's easy to judge if someone has those technical skills or not. You just look at their previous work and all that. GPT, and especially its use in the industry, that's relatively new at the level and the scale where it's evolving now. So at that scale, what's important is that, and the rapid evolution of the industry. So what's very important for me is, I don't care if you know everything today or not, but I do care if you dedicate time and resources to learning constantly, because it's an evolving industry. Every day something new is coming out. So when I interview or my team interviews people who are looking to join our teams, beyond their technical skills, we also judge what they're reading. We look at their LinkedIn profiles and we see what they're posting. We look at their, we ask them, what's the recent book that you read, or what's the recent articles that you read, because that tells me that this person is, staying on top of things. Are there any interesting things you have created using LLMs, GPTs, that kind of stuff, even in your personal time, even for entertainment, your personal entertainment reasons, because that shows your interest in the technology. Few things that are really important right now for the business world, for the industry and the leaders to understand is, when it comes to project selection and product development, rules are still the same. The best practices are still the same. You have to think about ROI. You have to think about who it impacts. You have to think about who the decision makers, decision influencers are, who the customers and consumers are. These are the basics of any product development, have always been. What's slightly new this time around is, in the past, data used to be the sideshow. Now data is the main show. What that means is, if you ask me today, and it happens, I mean, Steve, like if I put $1 in my saving account every time someone asks me, so give me this blue pill that will solve all my problems, I'd be quite rich. It happens every time we have a new emerging tech, and it's happening again now in the wake of AI and even blockchain still, where a business leader would come to us and say, tell me how I can bring AI into my business today to automate all my processes so that I can achieve that competitive advantage right away that I can using AI. And my response to them is, no, that's not how it's going to work. It's the same answer that I gave you 2 years ago when we were talking about blockchain, and 2 years before that when we were talking about other things. This time around, in the context of product development, what's new is that, or project selection, you have to first think, where do you, in your organization's processes, you have the most amount of data? That's the low-hanging fruit. That's where you got to start. ChatGPT, having access to it, or any other LLM or any AI tool, just the fact that you and I both have access to it doesn't give us competitive advantage. You and I both can get subscription of ChatGPT for $20, for example, or other tools for different levels of investment. But anyone can do that if they can afford it. So that's not competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is, if Steve picks up a GPT and trains it on his writings, his speaking, his history, his business's data, now that's competitive advantage, because Sani does not have access to that data. So I don't have that competitive advantage, you do. That's what I'm trying to advocate for businesses, is that when you want to bring in AI, leverage AI and other emerging technologies for competitive advantage, think, where do you have data in your organization? Typically, finance, accounting, sales. So that's the first level where you have the most amount of and most clean data. When you go below that, then the data is not that clean, but there's still marketing, operations, things like that. You still find some data. So then that would be the second layer, and so on. So that would be people looking for opportunities in the AI world. If they can just learn these skills and use these skills, where they can analyze processes of a business, see where automation opportunities are, see where the data is, and then figure out what tools, what AI tools can be brought in to automate those processes using that internal proprietary data, that's the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, Sani, I completely agree that the true competitive advantage lies in utilizing the proprietary data with AI tools, and then tailoring them to the unique aspects of one's particular business. So just on the topic of leveraging unique assets, this really brings to mind the contrast with blockchain's philosophy of decentralization. Now, while AI, especially in the form of services like ChatGPT, really tends to centralize knowledge within the major tech companies, it looks to me like blockchain really aims to distribute that control But what's interesting to observe is these different approaches. AI really centralizing versus blockchains decentralizing. So I'm very curious, how do you see this interplay affecting businesses that are looking to adopt these technologies for competitive edge? Do you start to see that there's a synthesis between these models? Could they offer the best of both worlds? I mean, I think they tend to favor more centralization.
True. Although I think we have an answer to that problem. Within the blockchain industry or blockchain technology, you have three different types of blockchains. One is public, one is private, one is hybrid. So public is anyone can join. Private is only certain people can join or certain entities can join. And hybrid is a group of the two. So think an industry where a bunch of companies are allowed to join that chain. So that would be hybrid, where it's somewhat public, but not quite, right? AI, on the other hand, especially when you look at machine learning models, they use large amounts of data, right? So you can limit that data to, you can say that only look at this one data set. Don't look at global data set. OpenAI actually started offering this type of a service for businesses not too long ago, and other companies will do it as well, because obviously we can't open up all our data to everybody. So that doesn't work. So one of the companies that I head up, it's in the energy sector, energy trading, fuel commodities, primarily jet fuel, etc. And it's middle market. And I realized that in that market, there are lots of players, many players. Some are small, some are large, and some work on deals for years and never get anywhere. Others, they have more deals going on. But these deals are large scale deals. So if you can close one deal, this is like hundreds of millions of dollars. However, there is no centralized system in place, because information is the key. If I know where to buy the product, where to sell the product, how to price the product, I have the power, right? That's my intellectual property. That's my that's the power. As soon as it's this information is available to anybody else, I lose my competitive edge, can't survive. So I propose the idea of creating a hybrid blockchain, where a hybrid blockchain based ERP type system, where we can streamline all these very complex processes involved in energy trading. Put all of that on this system. It would be a centralized system in which all buyers, or not all, but whoever wants to play, they would be members of it, buyers and sellers. And this idea wasn't very popular in that industry, because the information, to your earlier point, because on one side we have public information versus private information. The idea didn't fly very well because, like I said, people are very protective of their information. No matter how much you try to assure them that this information stays with you, you own it. And when you put it on the chain, it's fully secure, no problem. It didn't work. But if you bring it at a company level, that you can do that. Technologically, you can do it. You can keep all the data within a company, but then the cost of operating it goes through the roof. And as I mentioned, most of these companies are small companies. They don't have those kind of resources. So can technologically AI and blockchain work together? That's actually a match made in heaven, right? If you just look at blockchain, I believe, in my opinion, it's one piece of the puzzle. You have to look at data collection. Collection comes from, sensors, humans, machines, any sources, right? Data comes in, then you secure that data somewhere. That's your blockchain. In any of, I mentioned three types. There are others. Think of it as a spectrum of how public a chain is. And then what do you do with that data? That's the AI part. You do something using AI, look for pattern detection or whatever. You create some actionable insights out of that data, and then you use that. So both technologies are very well suited to work together. The issue is not that they can't work together. The issue is how much just communicating this to the stakeholders, the idea that your information is secure when it's on the chain. And that's going to be a problem when you're working across entities. As long as it's within one entity, a government, a very large organization, you're fine, no problem. But when you go outside that and you want to share information across entities, even if it's fully secure, that's a hard sell.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, your insights into the synergy between AI and blockchain really are enlightening, and I love this, especially considering the security and data privacy concerns. I mean, really that you've outlined. But given your expertise with these technologies, what would you say the primary hurdles are when you encounter or when you're advising companies? Specifically, how do you address the hesitation of executives who really may grasp the potential for AI and blockchain, but are reluctant to really make that leap due to, perceived risks or a lack of a strategic vision specifically for implementation of AI products?
So we get some industry surveys done every year to get a sense of the tech landscape. In the recent survey, we found out that over 78% business leaders, they completely understand and believe that AI and emerging technologies are a competitive edge. If they don't adopt these technologies within the next 10 years, they will lose their competitive edge. They won't be able to survive within 1 decade, regardless how stable you are today. Complete understanding. Less than 4% leaders are actually investing significant amount of resources into leveraging these technologies and bringing these tech into their business operations. When asked why, the most common response was, I don't have information, I don't have guidance, I don't know who to trust because everyone is claiming to be the expert. I'm concerned that my existing processes that are working perfectly, they will break if I introduce a new tech into it, and that kind of stuff. The issue wasn't money. The issue was fear. The solution to that is quite easy, as a matter of fact. The easiest solution is you got to find experts. I mean, we have people in our company at VezTek who this is their bread and butter. This is what they live and breathe. So just talking to people like that and saying, look at my processes and tell me where the opportunity is. And we are not always going to tell you that you have the opportunity. If you don't have the data, either your own or access to it somehow, you can't use these tools, right? It's not a competitive advantage. Even if you bring in GPT type tools or other AI tools, you have to somehow customize them to a level where they become yours, where they become your competitive edge, not just anybody can pay the fee and get subscription. Then that's not a competitive edge. Now, on lower levels, like creating some tech, generating some text or marketing copy, or using GPT to write your emails or improve your whatever, that can be done. But I don't see that as a competitive advantage. Yes, it increases your efficiency. I think I made a statement somewhere, got some pushback for it. If today you go in any decent sized organization, look at their processes, introduce publicly available AI tools, you can increase their efficiency by about 15%, 15 to 17%. So that's that. But almost any reasonable size organization has access to that. If everybody has access to something, I don't consider that competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is when you have access but others don't. To get to that level, you have to make these tools yours by customizing them based on your data.
Yeah, and customization takes time, it takes effort, it takes it takes cycles within your team to be able to develop this. I think in your book you mentioned again the book is amazing. I started reading it. The makers of Slender Knowledge, phenomenal so far. And I think you mentioned in the book that VezTek really shines as an innovation hub for emerging technologies, and that. And then in that, it says it redefines them within 12 to 16 months. And I'm really interested here a little bit around your emerging convergence framework and kind of what led you to it. How do you bridge the gap between skills and infrastructure, and how do you evangelize that when you're talking with executives and people in the tech space?
So that emergence convergence framework, which is a emerging tech forecasting framework, it evolved and was developed as a very painful need that we had at that point. VezTek, I founded it in 2006, and the idea was we're always going to be emerging tech company. That means whatever technology is emerging, we're going to provide consulting, development resources in those technologies. Well, the challenge was that at that point, technology landscape was shifting like complete paradigm shift within about 3 to 5 years at that point. Then what happened is that change, it became the period of that change, it became shorter and shorter and shorter. Frequency just kept going up. Currently, in the post-COVID era, we are at 12 to 14 months, 12 to 16 months max, right? And then that's when change happens. If you look back to every less than 2 years, we have some new technology that becomes talk of the town. So this is the landscape that we've been dealing with since 2006. What many of our peers in the industry, what they do is they wait for the demand to come in, and when the demand comes in, then they go out and look for resources, and then they try to capture the demand. That model wasn't working for us. So what we did is we created this framework, which, like I said, it's a forecasting framework. It allows us to kind of look down the path and see what technologies are coming down the pike, and then invest in those technologies ahead of time. Develop resources, build infrastructure, retool, retrain our existing teams, and see if we can be prepared in time to capture that demand when it comes up in the market. So we have to be mindful of hype versus actual demand. We have to be mindful for actual investments coming in that space or not. Are there enough resources available in the market or not? Things like that. So that's the emergence convergence framework. Currently, it gives us about 12 to 14 months head start. So that's a good thing to have, to know that we need to be prepared for technology X in 12 months.
That's incredible, because most of the time you don't see that quick. You typically see the cycles anywhere between 24 to 36 months on a turnaround for something like very new, innovative. We don't really know what this is. We're looking for experts in the field to kind of help us figure out a trajectory. Yeah. But that's incredible that you have that. I want to dive into the book a little bit. The Makers, a Slender Knowledge. I started reading it and I've been fascinated with it. And I really want to get through it. But what I found interesting was I want to hear your perspective on kind of what led you to really write the book, and how you kind of curated knowledge from different people from different walks of life to create this amazing book.
Excellent question. So what happened is that many years, I mentioned earlier that our first large-scale project that leveraged AI was in 2015, I think. What was happening is that every time I would bring up AI, machine learning, anything like that, the most common response was Terminator. So robots are going to take over the world, right? The doom and gloom scenario. As an entrepreneur, I'm a hopeful person, but that's my default setting. So I started thinking there has to be a way to avoid that scenario. And so I started asking questions. And at that point, looking at the evolution of technology and all the forecasting models that we had, the estimate was it would take about 20 years for the AI technology and robotics technology to get to a point where it becomes AGI, artificial general intelligence. That's the threat. That's your Terminators, right? So I started asking this question: what would it take to stop AI from doing stupid things 20 years from today? And I asked this question to countless number of people, anybody who would listen to me, regardless of their background, because I really believed that magic happens at the convergence of different disciplines. As long as you keep it within one silo or within one area of knowledge, you're kind of limited. So I went across the aisles and I spoke with people in different fields, including politics and clergy and sociology, and I mean, you name it. And the response that resonated with me the most was the person asked me a question in response to my question, and his question was, what would you do today to prevent your kids from doing stupid things 20 years from today? And it's like, that's a good question. What do you do? Well, you try to teach good values to your children. You hope that they would learn, and you hope that they're listening, and you hope that they would become better people. It's like, that's exactly what you need to do with AI. Because the way you train AI and the way you raise children is similar in certain ways. Similar as in, when we teach our kids values, the best way that we've been taught is be the role model. Kids are looking up to you, be the role model, do good things in front of them, they'll learn instead of lecturing them, exposing them to good environments. And sometimes you lecture them, sometimes you so equivalent of lecturing would be direct data entry in the AI world.
Right.
Sometimes you expose them to different environments, take them out shopping, for example, with you and see how the process of shopping is done at a grocery store, right? And sometimes you give them the credit card and have them pay to the cashier. The equivalent of that, exposing them to different environments in the AI world would be, for example, exposing your AI model to YouTube data, for instance, right? So there are lots of similarities. So that's where the idea came from. If you teach good human values to AI today, if you bake that morality and that the values in the way we are developing AI, then there is a chance that AI would develop into the beings that we can coexist with and thrive alongside. So that's where the idea came from. Now, when I started writing the book, I actually initially I thought of writing the book in almost like a manifesto, how to 10 ways to do X kind of model. But I had the good fortune of speaking with Mr. Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup for the Soul author, very well-known person. He later became my publisher. So I had a conversation with him about it, asked him the same question. He's like, you got to write a book about it. I was like, okay, let's write a book. And then when he heard that I wanted to write it as how to, he's like, no one wants that. Write it as a story. So the book is a work of fiction, but mindfully divided into chapters. Each chapter is about a value and experience of AI, in how it interacts with humans and how humans respond to it. And my hope from this is we can raise some questions. We can trigger people to think what can be done in our personal capacities today, because our decisions today is the data for AI training tomorrow. So my decision today in my organization don't just impact my people today. It can potentially impact a lot of people in a lot of places down the road if my decisions that I made today is used for training of the AI. So that's kind of was my motivation.
Yeah, Sani, the way that you've woven the interaction of human and artificial intelligence values into a narrative, it's a very powerful approach, and I think it brings awareness, and it really is a stimulating thought. The storytelling aspect really seems to connect deeply, I think, with our need to understand complex issues like artificial intelligence through a relatable experience. Given this impact, I mean, do you envision that the collective stories and experiences that are shared in society really could lead to a more unified ethical framework for AI? And how might we harness the storytelling to really create AI values that are widely accepted and implemented?
In one of my recent interviews, I brought up the idea of AI ethics and values, and the person interviewing me, he said, well, all AI is built on values. There is no AI without values. Now, whose values? That's another question.
Right.
From the history, we do know that whenever we try to impose any one entity's values on other people, it doesn't work. We have seen that over and over, whether it's in the religious context or political context or any context. So I don't think it's going to be values imposed by any single entity. I think what's going to happen, and these are just speculations, right? We don't know yet. I think what's going to happen is that over time, hopefully, as you know, human race, as citizens of this world, will come up to some understanding, some agreement over some basic rules, some basic, these are the 5 basic values that we can agree on, for example. And perhaps that would be the starting point. I don't think it's going to be a whole set of values coming from some one entity. The other possibility is that you end up with one clear market leader. Google, for example, controls 80% of the search market today. They can set the rules for the search browser search industry, right? Because they own 80% of the market share. So something like that could also happen, where one company or one entity has that much power that they can set the rules. That can happen. I have also speculated that UN may have to get involved, some UN level body where they can come in and they can say, okay, we need some central international organization to come up with some principles, some values and goals, some values and rules of engagement that we can agree on. We don't know yet. So these are all speculations. Your guess is as good as mine.
So, Sani, as our conversation, as we draw to a close, I'm really struck by the poignant dedication in your book, A Slender Knowledge, where you charge your sons not only to coexist, but also to thrive alongside AI entities. And the message really resonates with me profoundly because as a father of young twin boys who are also on the onset of their journey in a world where there's lies that intersection between humanity and AI, and they're becoming increasingly blurred. I think it's fascinating, but somewhat daunting to really consider the landscape and how they will navigate that in the next 5 years. I think the terrain where AI will become even more present and influential. So drawing on your hopeful vision, as you set forth for your children, where do you see us standing with AI in that time frame? And how as parents, how can we as a society also lay the groundwork for future generations to not just adapt, but also to leverage AI to their advantage, and also ensuring that they don't just survive, but they indeed thrive?
So I don't call myself futurist. I call myself nexist. Futurist would be, in 70 years, X is going to happen. I'll be dead in 70 years, so you can't come and sue me. But I'm more interested in, what's likely in the next few years, so we can plan for it. Your kids are young, 4 years. So they are about, 20 years away from the workforce, roughly?
Yeah.
Give or take,
yep.
Right? My kids are a little bit older, 13 and 10. The way I think is I think 10 years ahead. So how the world looks like 10 years ahead, and then work backwards. 10 years ahead, and this is not just my opinion, many experts in the industry, they agree on it. So the life 10 years ahead is likely to be very virtual. We got a taste of that with the whole idea of metaverse. It was too early, too ahead of its time. Right now, it's just entertainment. And we don't have enough technology, the right kind of technology, to really put metaverse to work. If you look backwards, the early days of internet, the very first version of the internet, the very first generation, was just post some articles on the server, and then in Urbana-Champaign, for example, and then in Chicago, researchers could read those articles. That was the internet, the very first version. The second iteration, there was some interaction. Third iteration, in the second, there was also e-commerce kind of got involved. And now in the third one, decentralized data and trust, that's big. So you keep going forward, 10 years forward, virtual lives, virtual internet, virtual lifestyle, that's highly likely to happen, in which we work, we play, we live in these virtual environments. Very early version of that is what we are doing right now, remotely. But we're talking about like fully immersed environments in the future. In order to get there, there are certain technologies that need to happen. The e-commerce system needs to evolve. The internet speed needs to evolve. The energy sector needs to evolve. Currently, 3% of global energy is being consumed by emerging technologies. By the end of this year, we are expecting 8% energy to be consumed by emerging technologies. That's not sustainable. So that has to change. Jobs that are currently, any jobs that's data-driven job. Well, until recently, I used to say if it's a data-driven job, anything where your information, think a physician, not a surgeon, but physician who only uses his lots of information, those jobs are very much at risk of being significantly impacted. But I think you posted on your LinkedIn yesterday, or somebody did, a robot that came out within this month that can do like dishes and folding laundry and that kind of stuff. It's like, wow, okay, so even physical jobs are now getting impacted. So for the kids especially, knowing that we're moving towards that virtual world, and knowing that in order to get there, we need certain other technologies and industries to involve, I think that's where we need to pay attention, because that's going to then determine the education of our children today, the training, and their future professional prospects.
Fascinating. So you're probably going to say that this is me probably thinking, kind of double clicking on that a little bit, is thinking around embracing artificial intelligence and understanding how AI really plays a role in learning and development at a much earlier age. So you think that probably kids who are now in elementary school will probably be more exposed as we start looking at AI's role in education as an educator, as a way for them to rapidly adopt and learn faster than most kids today. You probably start to, is that kind of a vision you start to see within kids in school today?
So I've seen a mix of that. I've seen some kids actually pushing back on AI-based tools, the way they see it. And I think that has a lot to do with their grown-ups, teachers, parents. For example, my son, he's like, I hate ChatGPT. I said, why would you say that? And that's a very strong statement. He's like, because before ChatGPT, my teachers would give me homework. I would come home, do my homework. I'd turn it in. I'm good. Now my teacher thinks that I'm using ChatGPT to write my essays. Now they want me to do my homework in the classroom, sitting in front of them. Now, my son, he doesn't like when he writes or when he's doing his thing, he likes full attention, headphones on, certain music playing, full quiet, no disturbance. When he's sitting in the classroom, he doesn't have that luxury.
Right.
So he sees it as a threat to him. And he pushes back. Even when I try to explain to him that it can make your life easier and there are certain things you can do, he wouldn't accept it. So there's that. But then there are other kids who are interested in it. They want to learn it. Regardless, they have to get comfortable with AI because this is their future. Kids who are in middle and high school today, and even college, they're going to be kind of like how our generation, you and me, how we adopted the internet. We aren't internet natives. We are internet migrants. We were analog before, living analog lives. Then we adopted into the internet lifestyle. Our next generation, they were digital natives. So for them, everything comes very natural when it comes to digital. Kids today, they are not AI natives. I'm talking about middle and high school and beyond, right? Elementary school and younger, they're going to be, to a degree, AI natives. So they will be very comfortable with these technologies. My biggest fear in the context of this conversation is the skills that we are giving, or we will give to the kids. Because even grown-ups are not 100% certain what we need to learn, how we will use these technologies, how we get along these technologies. Many of us see it as a threat. Many of us see it as a tool. Others see it as a belief system, believe it or not. I've been told I don't believe in AI. And I'm like, it's not deity that you have to believe in. It's technology. Mm-hmm. So even we are uncertain. So I don't know how we're going to give clear guidance and directions to the young ones. It's an evolving situation, even in the education field.
I definitely agree with you that the loss of that personal connection between a student and instructor, is definitely a concern. I've spoken with a couple of educators in this field who also have that same fear of, is that I have a great connection with my students, and there's a lot of concern that might become a huge drift between that student instructor relationship, kind of in a classroom setting, and feeling like there's that personal connection, that human connection to another individual. But I think back to your book again is, figuring out how we can integrate and how we can kind of coexist around these entities will probably take some time. And it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen probably in the next 5 years, probably in the next 10 years. I'm not going to be a futurist, but I'll probably say in the next 15, 20 years, we might see a completely different landscape when it comes to the education in the classroom. Sani, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Where can we follow you? Where can we get more? Where can we learn more from you and your travels?
The best way to get in touch with me and follow me is via LinkedIn. I'm quite active there. And on LinkedIn, it's just my last name, Sani, Sani.
Awesome. Sani, thank you for this wonderful conversation today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, and we hope to have you back again on Tech Travels.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.